You got a torn window screen. I'll show you how to replace that here. Tenants that were here actually used something that they found as a screen repair thing. You've probably seen it on Shark Tank. It's kind of like a taped screening material, but the landlord wants us to replace the whole thing so it looks nice. What I'm doing here is I'm using this little hook thing to try to get this out from around the border. It's called Spline, that is used to hold the screen in place. Sometimes you can reutilize it, and we're going to do that here today. The reason why I'm saying that is because it's already cut to length and also has some flexibility, and so no need to replace it. Just removing that spline will allow you to be able to get the screening material to come out. Sometimes it may make a tearing noise. This stuff does have a tendency to age and become brittle over time, but for the most part, it should come out nicely. The screening materials in the stores, they do come in a couple different materials. This stuff is fiberglass, and in this instance, it is kind of a dark charcoal color. They have a lighter gray, and then in some instances, you probably have seen it. Some of them are made out of aluminum. In this instance, we're just going to replace it with what is currently here. What you're going to do is you're going to take the screening material that you have on the rolls and you're going to lay it out over the frame. When you do that, you're actually going to want a little bit over the edge on all sides, because when you go to put it on, it's going to stretch a tiny bit. It'll give you the slack you need to be able to trim it when you go around. And the spline material, you know, it's good because it kind of grips into that groove. Here is the tool I'm referring to. It has this little groove, catches the spline when you go to roll it in. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put in the spline. I'm going to kind of push it in with my hand a little bit so it's already in that groove. It's ready for me to use this spline rolling tool applicator. And so when you're going to go and push it in there, you're going to need to put a little bit of pressure. I usually have my finger in front of the roller itself to be able to position the spline in place. Now, with applying this old spline here, and you can use basically one piece versus 1, 2, 3, and 4. As I go around this corner, I wanted to kind of reposition this screening material to make sure that it is covering all of the 4 sides itself, because a second ago it actually kind of migrated over this way, and if it did, we would have like this big border here and then no border on the other side here to be able to cut off. So you kind of want to watch yourself on the second passing. I am just kind of pressing the screening material and spline into this groove, into the framing of this screen. I am not kind of pulling the screening tight, because basically when you go and put the spline in there, it's kind of tightening it up as it goes. The corners may not go in perfectly and nicely initially, but they will when you go back around, when you're done kind of putting it in initially. Making sure that the long runs are in there well, and then I'll go and tuck in the corners in a moment or two. And I am kind of pulling this material over here in this corner kind of tight, so again, it doesn't migrate away, it doesn't get kind of puckered. I'm pulling it a little bit, but I'm not like yanking on it. The screen itself, the framing is pretty square, and if you go and pull it tight, it's going to kind of bow in and bow out kind of thing, and then it won't fit into the window area very well, and then also let bugs in. There's these little tabs here that are on the window screens that are used to be able to kind of spring load to be able to pop it in place when you go to reinsert it into the window. And so those things actually go through the frame itself, you see here. And so when you go to put the splining through it, it's going to kind of bump over it. And I'm just kind of shoving versus rolling right now in these corners. I am kind of pulling the screen, you know, taut, but not like really tight like I described a moment ago. If you take this splining tool and you're pressing too hard and you accidentally jump off track, you'll have a tendency to kind of tear the screen, and then you're going to basically have to redo it. You know, so I'm just kind of jumping that one little bit of support bracket. Do the same over here. And as you see here, how much of the spline is kind of left over, because when you go and apply it, it kind of stretches a little bit. So we're just going to cut that extra a little bit off. And before I go and do any of the cutting of the screening material and the spline, I'm going around to make sure everything is in there nice and tight. And then in a second, I'm going to pull out my utility knife and then just cut that screen. I want to show you kind of where you're going to want to cut this screening material. You're going to want to cut it on the outside of the screen itself. And I usually will take the blade, kind of kick it at an angle, and I'll push it into the aluminum framing, and it will cut the screening nicely. Make sure you do it slowly so it doesn't jump and also damage the screening. Just start in one corner, and I just kind of cut the material up until the corner, and then I'm just, like I said, cutting at an angle. And I'm kind of pulling at the same time to see if it cut nicely. And if the blade is nice and sharp, it will cut the screening material very easily. It kind of goes into the aluminum framing a tiny bit. That's also good because it keeps it on track. So it etches it a little bit, but not anything anyone's going to notice. It's not going to rust or anything like that. And if this material is in your way, you can just go ahead and just cut it right off because it's just going to be waste. Now the splining material that goes in the edge, it is something you can buy some replacement ones for. Sometimes the window screens aren't that old. You don't need to replace them all the time. Okay, basically done. As you can see, it's retained its shape. It's not bowing or anything like that. If I pulled that screening material, it would have been too tight and it wouldn't be square anymore. That's it for replacing this screen in today's Mr. Fix-It tip.